morning, friends, and welcome to another edition with Bradford. We have this edition called Unlock Brand with Bradford. This is every Thursday morning at 11. We bring in a special series and a special guest. And this is actually designed by for us to really bring in overall learning for licensing industry. We talk about the best practices in the industry. We talk about the strategies for brand extension. We also talk about what is the current market opportunities which are happening, especially for licensing in the market. And we also see fashion as a big category because I think one of the biggest contributors, about 35% of a global licensing business, really comes from fashion. Before I introduce my guest today, I would like to give you a little overview about Bradford. Bradford is a global licensing firm. It's one of the oldest licensing agencies in the world. Started from New York, and we have offices in London, and we are for last 12 years in India. And licensing, Bradford has been very successful to work on corporate trademarks, animated characters, sports licensing, and fashion. So today I have privilege to have a very, very special guest, Mr. Bhupinder Nagpal. He's an industry veteran, and he's not new to the industry, and especially to licensing, and has been a big influence on what he's created. And his brand, which he represents and leads as a company, is Carlton London. And so we will start with you, Nagpalji. Thank you very much for joining us, and we start with the brand story. If you give us a little bit of a brand story, how Carlton London was born and how it really got in that thing, and what is being achieved over this journey, and little bit if you want to really share about yourself also, it will be very useful for our audience.
Thank you, Mr. Maria. It's a pleasure to be part of your program, Unlock Brand. Carlton London has also been a beneficiary of your services and engagement with Bradford. Carlton London has evolved from UK. And for the audience, I'll share a brief presentation of the Carlton London brand and its aim to take a business leap through the licensing route. May I have the presentation, please?
Sure.
So we have the presentation, Mr. Nagpal.
Yeah, you can go to the next slide. Next slide, brand story. Carlton London journey started with incorporation of the parent company, Carlton Shoes Limited, in East London by Mr. Bradford, who is now the chairman of the company. These were times when name of the company or the family name or name of the town eventually used to become the brand name or adopted as a brand name. This is what exactly happened with the name of the company, and Mr. Wick was there much before in the footwear business in East London, and he always wanted a suitable name of the product that he was selling and wanted to be associated with City of London. So the Carlton and London put together became the trade name, Carlton London. It received very good response from all set of customers, and that is how the brand name Carlton London was born in UK. This was in year 1989. In India, the company came into existence in 1993 with the incorporation of Carlton Overseas Private Limited. In 1993, all activities were around manufacturing and selling mainly for export. Though there were a lot of demands from the Indian retailers, but Mr. Wick never wanted to launch Carlton London in India in a multi-brand environment or in a department store. He was looking for an exclusive store, preferably in a shopping mall. During that period, the shopping malls announcement came in terms of building and offering the retail space, but really took very long. And finally, waiting for about 5 6 years, the first store of Carlton London was launched in 2002 2003 with the first shopping mall in India, that was in Gurgaon, the Metropolitan Mall. I remember I was associated with Mr. Wick as a friend, as an advisor at that point of time. Each and every product that he and his team chose was really crafted as a London high street brand, a London high street fashion. It received an excellent response from customer because there were no other international brand in this particular segment. Bata was there, but Bata was never presented as a international brand. It used to look more of an Indian brand by its styling or by its presentation or the kind of shop it had. The other brands or the customer were buying at that point of time from the name of the store, whether it was Liberty or Mesco or Woodland or Metro or Shirilata, Dawood, many more similar brands in India. It is almost, the brand story is very, very similar to what we say, that when you work with your own conviction, with your own passion on a brand, the results are what you dream and desire. And that is how Carlton London launched in India. The vision of Mr. Wick and his team and the patience that they exercised during that period laid a very, very strong foundation for the brand Carlton London in India. None of the team members, neither Mr. Work or other team members, were from any background of a business school. But if we analyze and look back today, knowingly or unknowingly, all the basics of a true brand buildings were in place. The product was superior compared to the competitors. The attributes which were important to the customers were very well addressed. Brand had a global appeal, but at the same time also easy to pronounce and looked familiar. There was a lot of proprietary know-how and detailing of the product which went into the product line and informed to the customer in such a way, it assuring them of trust and quality about the brand. It really became a good brand and a well-recognized brand from the day one. Just go to the slide back, yes. Carlton London since then has developed like a true British lifestyle brand and have added several categories such as handbags, wallets, belts, luggage, watches, jewelry. All have been identified very carefully before the launch. Just go to a slide before. Over the years, the brand has then further developed and now identified with these attributes. Of course, it continued to be with British roots and a global acceptability of the product line. The quality is the topmost priority for every product or every category that we are associated with. It is fashion relevant and staying with fashion all the time. It serves to all kind of lifestyle from morning to evening, occasion to a commonplace. And again, every Carlton product is a masterpiece, even today, crafted with passion. The family, the promoters, the professionals who are associated are really putting their best into every product that is coming in. And we can go to the next slide. The design philosophy continues to be British. The family lives in London. The professional designs are based out of London. There's a lot of research done on the high street fashion. The design philosophy continues to be London high street fashion, whether it is a formal or a casual or a workwear product that is coming in with the Carlton London. Our target audience in men and women is from 25 to 35 years of age group, with a global perception and a cosmopolitan outlook. It's a young brand. It's a stylish but practical brand. It is trendy and unique sometimes. It is colorful but not loud. It is fashion but not rebellious. It is fun but with very graceful outlook of the brand. Go to the next slide, please. The product categories are already launched by Carlton London or with the help of their licensees, in addition to footwear, are handbags, wallets and belts, jewelry, watches are already in the market, and fragrance. The trial runs have been done, but we are still looking for a licensee. The men's shoes, as you see, continue to be simple, humble, but stylish. Continue the slide, please. Next slide. The women's shoes are loafers, wedges, heels, sandals, boots, flexible. Just continue the next slide. Not loud or sparkle or any chamak. The handbags, the brand has further developed into a logo which you can see on the handbags and now also appearing on the footwear. This is the further development of the brand, where the brand is also recognized with its logo, not just by the words. So this logo, which we call as button logo, is really working well for us, mainly for handbags and accessories. Belts and wallets are really doing well through a licensee. It is one of the a successful example. And I believe Bradford has a big role in introducing the licensee or this partnership with us. Fragrance, we are looking for, you can see the product, it is already there, but we're looking for a licensee who can really take it forward. Like it happened in case of the first launch of the store, with a proper research of the product line, of the detailing, and the propriety. Jewelry has been one of the segment where a lot of research has been done, and then a licensee has been identified, and it has really been very, very successful for brand Carlton London. This we will discuss later, how exactly the licensee process has to take place so that the licensee and the brand remains aligned. And this is one of the example we would like to share. Watches is in very initial stages. Ladies apparels have already been licensed. This is a category which we believe has very, very high potential in terms of the numbers. And there are, I mean, women Western wear is already there, but we are looking for a menswear licensee, and it is going to grow much faster and much higher in the time to come. Next slide, please. Brand Carlton London is always positioned as a premium brand in footwear and other categories. It becomes very important for the growth and for expansion to look for brand extensions. Now, Carlton London, in our own abbreviation, started being addressed as CL. And I saw the your agenda also. You also mentioned Carlton London brief as a CL. So, utilizing that abbreviation, we have created two brands as Miss CL and Mr. CL. And these are really a very, very good example of brand extension, that you remain associated with the premium brand, but at the same time identified as a separate brand, as a separate product line. So Miss CL is mainly for girls, flats and ballerinas and particular product line. Mr. CL has become the men's footwear line, and Carlton London remains a premium product line for the footwear and other accessories. The Carlton Flex is a technology that we have introduced for the flexibility. So the Carlton and the Flex put together, directly address that need of a customer who are looking for comfortable and a flexible footwear. And Carlton London Kids, I don't need to say, it is meant for kids wear, which was not a category before with us. So these are the brand extensions that are already with us, registered, and IPs for the company. Next slide, please. The Carlton London, though, I mean, we are sitting in India, so we know its presence in India, but it has gone global. These are the countries where we are already selling. And Singapore has been added to that. We have started selling in Singapore. We are now a registered brand in USA, in Mexico, in Brazil, in Russia, in Philippines, and in the time to come, either through the licensing route or our own presence or direct presence, we'll be expanding our footprints into the rest of the world as well. This is the one slide that I wanted to share with the audience, the new look of Carlton London stores. There are 4 or 5 stores with the new look, with a much higher premium look for the brand. This is the Ambience store, opened 2 to 3 years back. And the next one is the Mumbai store. The next slide. That's all, Mr. Maria, about the journey of Carlton London.
Nagpal, I think it was very insightful, and we have a very long-standing relationship with Carlton London. I still remember franchising. There was the first company, which is my group company, actually started working with Carlton London on franchising the stores, and when they just beginning to, from a manufacturing company, to start working on retail. And then our association really went into Bradford for licensing. And you were one of the few companies which are both growing in their core category themselves by opening stores and building the large network, and also now looking at a stronger brand extension. And this is one of the areas which I think a lot of sometimes Indian fashion brands or brands I think they don't have that exposure. They try to do a lot of things themselves, which they don't build capabilities. And licensing is actually all about to really find out great partners who have capabilities in the non-core categories, which are complementing to that. Like for them, doing a belts is not a no-brainer, but belts might need a different distribution. It needs a different distribution. It is an online product. It can be sold on a travel retail. Travel retail is very big on on these kind of thing. It can be also done for a lot of gifting places and things of that nature. So that might not be the strategy for entire thing. So mature companies would only focus on their core businesses, and then they would like to look at licensing out the other category. Before we get into the further questions, Snakpal, you mentioned that some of the lines which are very attractive at this stage, which are no-brainer, is one menswear was a very big licensing program which can be really done. And India, I think there is an English brand or a British brand. Opportunity is tremendous,
Yes.
tremendous opportunity for a menwear. I think this is $100 million kind of a business opportunity. I feel that the single program itself can be a very, very big opportunity coming through.
Yes. Yes.
And then there are other smaller programs which are like fragrances and things of that nature. So any other logical licensing which you think would you like to focus as a category particularly? And that's one question. And second, who would you like to see as a one or two tick marks for you when you look at a potential licensee? What are the 2 or 3 points which you always look at in any potential licensee?
See, licensing is like a marriage. It's not easy to identify or find a partner and tie the knot. At the same time, if it goes wrong, it's difficult to salvage and rebuild again. So the entire homework has to be done before you tie the knot or shake hand with a prospective licensee. The most important attribute of or quality of a licensee has to be first a complete alignment with the brand. If the brand believes in quality, 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 the licensee has to believe in quality, quality, quality. And that kind of alignment is required. It's a world of specialization today where in every industry, there's so much of breaking down of specialization, whether it is medical or IT or transport or ticketing or retailing, brick or mortar, or everywhere there's a specialization. The licensee has to have its own capacity of manufacturing. That is how the quality can be controlled, and that is how the licensee can remain focused to the product. That specialization has to come from the licensee. If we are saying we want to have somebody in menswear, so we are not looking for a trader. We are looking for someone who knows menswear in and out and can assure us the quality. The licensee has to have a habit or knowledge of how to deal with the brands, with the international brands. Have to have that digesting capacity of listening to the brand and working on sharing the information, training people around the brand. The brand will look into a complete, as I say, marriage or an alignment with the licensee. Uh, I think these are the three main. Of course, in today's world, after especially after COVID, we have realized that the licensee has to have an online infrastructure of its own. That is where the world is moving. That is where the growth is happening. So that has become an additional tick mark to have own online infrastructure, and that is where the marriage can take place with the brand.
Absolutely, and I think you touched upon a very important point, and we call the five principles of selection of franchise licensee in Bradford, and we follow these five principles. One is, I think, culture alignment, which means that any licensee who comes in has to belong to the culture of the brand. Right? So you can, because as Nagpalji said, it's a marriage. If you don't really belong to the same culture, it will always have problems. Second, they need to have a very strong go-to-market strategy. A lot of people take license, but they don't know how to really evolve and get to the market. So it's a go-to-market is very important. The first 3 to 6 months, what are you going to do to launch the program, how effective the program is. And we've seen the biggest of the companies, we've seen the biggest of the names in fashion. They've been successful in one program and they're not successful in another program. And it depends on the leadership team. Some team get it because they get the brand, and a program is very, very well received. And sometimes you're not able to do that. Some good programs in India are like a Nautica or a US Polo or the likes of them. And we've also seen a lot of, I don't want to name, but a lot of failures where there was a great brand, but the program was not very well developed. So what is your go-to-market strategy is very important. Third, which to me is very important in licensing, is creativity, because licensing is just not about simply applying the logo. It's all about creativity, and that's something which I think sometimes people lack. Just getting a label and just putting the logo everywhere, it doesn't make any sense. Look at the program like Tommy Hilfiger. It's a licensing program, but what kind of creativity they would bring in. They will use the Americana story about it, and almost every time the fashion evolves and being relevant to people, relevant to the global fashion situation, looking at what is happening in spring, summer, what is happening. And so creativity plays a very important role. Fourth point is ethics. I see a lot of good programs being stopped because royalties were not disclosed, underselling or undisclosed income. And that's where agencies like Bradford really comes in, because we need to really participate in making sure that we record almost all sales which are going on. And on behalf of a client, we are able to represent the right kind of structure. And fifth, what Nakwalji said, end of the day, manufacturing and distribution, right? Because if you don't have, what else you bring outside the money and the financial commitment on annual guarantees is your distribution. If you don't have a credible distribution available, then also the program would take a lot of time. So a lot of people take the license and then they start building distribution. It's actually wrong, because the licensing is actually leveraging that IP over a certain period. So good IPs like Lee Cooper was one time a licensee with Future. Because Future had distribution, they were able to use that licensing. And there are some other players who actually have great brands, but because of lack of distribution, they are not able to do that. So these are 5 things which we use. I'll come back to you, Nakpalji, for my next question, and then I will invite Vatsal to really take that. Licensing can also go wrong, and while we understand that it can be a great strategy, because when you are running a core business alongside and you have a program which starts with entire thing, and you feel that the kind of quality and the kind of representation is not marrying with your main program going on. And this we have seen with even the biggest of the brands. We've seen the biggest of the brands where their one program is not really working as well as entire thing, and it just shocks the customer. Like, I mean, I give you example of a company which got messed up in their licensing is Pierre Cardin. Pierre Cardin was a great company, but now you don't know where it is. You somewhere go to one country and find Pierre Cardin at a premium French brand, and somewhere in India you will find this accessories being sold of Pierre Cardin, and they're sold like a very, very cheap product. So this is where I say licensing going wrong, and there are many examples. I mean, but I will take Pierre Cardin and I think I
Very,
remember,
very correct example.
yeah, India, they opened up the stores in 90s. They were Pierre Cardin stores, were luxury stores. And that time, India didn't have any thing. And this brand launched with this philosophy. And today, it's a very different product altogether. So how do you really control that?
See, well, as I said, the study of the licensee about the quality, and once any business house or entrepreneur understand the word quality, it doesn't mean the quality of the product. It is quality at every step, in the quality of the packaging, in the quality of the services that you give to the customer, in the quality of the people that you hire, in the quality of the message that you send across. Now, these are the attributes which matters a lot, and now we are adding one more, that we should be able to reach out to the licensee on a regular basis, whether through the technology or through physical interaction or a physical meeting, that we should be able to look and feel the product before they are going into production. International brands have been successful in past, but they have faced a lot of difficulty in India because the licensee start misusing the brand, or even some of the licensee have been found involved or indulging into counterfeits. They're selling certain products off the records and creating a mess for the brand. So a close interaction by a licensing team is necessary on a regular basis, that alignment is required. The wheel balancing of a car is required every 3 months or 6 months. So the alignment of the brand with the licensee is a regular affair, by interacting with them, by training them, by speaking to them, by motivating them that this brand is yours. Okay, this brand ownership is with me, but you are living your bread and butter is also coming out of the same brand. Licensee, especially the young entrepreneurs, are very, very sincere. They understand the value of an established brand and the value of the royalty that is being paid by the licensee. Yes, you're 90%, you could be 80% successful, you could be 90%, but you have to make efforts with the licensee to ensure there is no dilution of identity, or there is no dilution of attributes, and there's no dilution of quality at any point of time between the brand and the licensee. And if it is happening, and if there are several incidents, one has to be harsh and take ultimate steps not to continue with such a licensee.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the control and compliances really come in, and more you are straightforward and not give any chance. And that's where I feel that some of the global brands we work with, even if they have a very small program, they would put a lot of value in terms of making sure that the program is not done. So it's not really about the kind of program. Even if you have done a promotional kind of a situation, they would focus on a lot on the quality and approvals before they hit the market. And we've seen that.
I had another point to make, Mr. Marwa, as you were speaking. I mean, I was yesterday trying to search about data, and you would be a better person to let the audience know. In this world, 95% of products that are launched fail. And it's not just because of by luck or by chance. I mean, I remember when one days or T20 cricket matches came into existence, even the player used to say, okay, we'll see at the ground what happens, who wins the toss will win the game, or who wins the toss will lose the game. But slowly they realize, whether it's a 20 over or a 50 over, there has to be a strategy behind it. How to be in that 5% bracket which succeeds is what is to be studied. And also to study why 95% fail. I couldn't find the data in terms of brands as to how one brand out of 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 is really succeeding. You must have that information with you. What is the ratio of successful brand versus the unsuccessful brand which have come into existence in this country or across the world? You share if you have that information.
No, yes, you put me on a spot, but I don't want to talk about too much on a failure which has happened. But yeah, you have a very big point you've done, and I should be honest. And there is I would say almost 50% of brands would not be able to survive the first 3 to 5 years post the program, and 50% would do a very long term program. So if we have done a lot of licensing programs, I think the first 2 3 years is always period, because you paid the license fee and you will like to really achieve that. But a lot of people don't have a long-term viewpoint on that, and there are many reasons for it. And reasons predominantly is the one of the areas which I said is creativity. They hit fatigue very fast, and that's one of the important. Second, the program is not built for a very long period, and they continue to visit the program and see, is this still relevant? Like what you're doing as a business owner. I know when the first store you opened up in Carlton, London, the product, the feel, the aesthetics, everything for what you are today is constantly evolved. The minor movement which continue to give the breathe to the entire thing. Because sometimes the licensee feels that because he doesn't own the brand, he doesn't believe in that same value system and not continue to reinvest back in the system. So licensing programs need a lot of reinvestment. Reinvestment in terms of what you have been very successful at one point in time, you need to make it relevant again. Look at like today, one of the fashion brands, US Polo, is a top class brand, probably outclassed everybody in the market. Even the most mature companies, which were like, and I think, but they have not. If you're not able to revisit the brand and evolve yourself, and some brands have done that. Louis Phillips Alan Solly, they actually started as a formal wear brands. And if you remember, Louis Phillips, he used to have these formal shirts which used to have a symbol on the entire thing. No more they are formal brand because market is casual. They become a purely casual brand. The aesthetics, the structure. So some good companies know how to really give the breather back to the brand, and some companies don't know. Some companies are not committed in that sense, and they run a short-term program and then they are not able to revive. So you're right, absolutely. So the licensing is a very long-term strategy, and that's where it should be really taken. And companies yours, where have invested for many 4 decades now, have to make sure that you are able to really make sure that every licensee understand that this is hard-earned IP, and the IP cannot be distorted for any reason. And now, because you're a global program, you need to really make sure that all the other licenses are also affected of one thing going wrong, and it can be very damaging in nature.
Yeah.
So, Vatsal, for your few questions with Mr. Nag.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Nagpal. We are really privileged to have Carlton London as one of our portfolio brands. And I still remember in 2019 when I had the eye of working on Indian brands, couple of Indian brands. I think Carlton London has come out where they have created actually a success story in licensing, being a Indian brand. So what I would like to understand, Mr. Nagpal, from you is that coming from a British understanding and thoughts and processes. Okay, when you were planning the entire strategy or the launches for the Indian market, India is a very price dominating market and a very price sensitive market. And you have to have a lot of offerings also, because if I talk about the entire geography, so it is distributed in such a way, you have to work on a lot of, I would say, the likes of the every segment or every masses. So how were you able to manage, or I would like to understand, how were you able to balance the design aesthetics and the pricing aesthetics, keeping the Indian market in place, and how you created that successful line in terms of online plays where already so many plays were there existing, and how that Carlton London evolved over a period of years.
Mr. Mara gave a very good example of Tommy Hilfiger, the Americana look, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't fit to Indian. It doesn't fit to an Asian consumer. It is the look and the roots and the design philosophy which has to continue same whether you sell in South or where you sell in North or where you sell. That look and the brand attributes, as I said, has to be kept aligned at all the time, has to be kept in mind at all the time. Yes, you have to fit into every shoe, every feet of a consumer. You have to be comfortable. As a footwear, you have to be comfortable. Carlton London entire design philosophy continues to be from London High Street. The professional designers are based in London. The family is based in London. They monitor the designing aspects. We are lucky in a way that UK or the London market has a global acceptance. And especially for India, if I go into the technical side of the product, of the footwear or the apparels or belts and wallets, particularly the raw materials and the components, the technical side in terms of quality aspects, in terms of grading aspects, in terms of sizing aspect, India still follows the British systems for centuries. So that's a hidden advantage London High Street brand or the British root brand will bring to the Indian consumer. There's no worries of the fitting and the comfort and the sizes. Is the size 8 in UK? Is the size 8 in India? That is what I mean. So yes, we have that advantage for the Indian market, for the European market. The acceptability is very high. I hope, Vatsal, I've answered the question and did not miss the line.
No, no, absolutely. You answered it very well. And I think it's absolutely right. The most acceptable function in India is owned, I think, by fashion. I think it's very clearly English fashion, because it's very close to what we are and what we inherited as a fashion and evolution of fashion. which
Like
happened.
you said, menswear. Do menswear? If a British brand in menswear, you don't have to say much more. I mean, it will have a large acceptability across the country.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it has a certainly a very large acceptability and focus on that. So that's I'm with you on that. That there is a huge opportunity of a good English evolved brand. But I feel also feel, especially for Carlton London, I think the commitment you have for market like India and your persistence and being the full infrastructure. And this is one of the problems with a lot of global licensing brands which come to India. One, they don't understand India. Second, they don't have a long-term commitment to the market with the full infrastructure of Carlton available in India, it's a tremendous licensing program, and that's why it gives an advantage because you have a much deeper rooted commitment to the market than a lot of companies who just come and license the brand and they will not really have that. So, Vatsal, I think you come back and maybe last
Yeah,
question.
so yeah. So, with the way, I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Nagpal. That was really wonderful. So, the way Carlton London has come over the years in terms of licensing, the way it has got into so many extensions, and we are very happy also to have planned a couple of extensions for Carlton London, such a amazing brand in footwear, started off just a footwear segment, and I think we have got so many categories in place. What are the opportunities that you are again seeing, and what categories that you are again looking forward to as a brand which you would like to venture into, and what are the opportunities that you are also looking forward to as a licensing domain or the licensing industry, which is again gaining really fast momentum in the Indian retail market.
The topmost on mind is menswear in terms of identifying and licensing. After having done with the Western wear women, that is the category. And with the Carlton London Kids as a brand extension already with us, that is where we find there would be extraordinary potential for the brand to identify a licensee who specialize in kids category. Now, kids can be footwear, can be apparels, can be uh, the school bags or anything, or it can be all put together as a package for the licensee. And the third one is, of course, perfumes and cosmetics. Perfume in our trial run, in the manner we have packaged the product, really we received a very good response. But we do not want to do it ourselves. We are looking for a licensee. That is where we 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 are very sure that it will have a great acceptability in the manner the product has been packaged, in the manner the product has been designed. Uh, it'll certainly have a success, provided we are able to find a partner. These are the three categories which are on top of our mind where we're looking for licensing.
I think apart from this, the categories, the general categories that you have mentioned from the products or merchandise segment, when I started working on Carlton London, I also had an eye for working on hybrid extensions for Carlton London. So when I say about hybrid or experiential formats, so these are basically an amalgamation of licensing and franchising both. So we create a concept, we develop a concept. It's basically I wanted to what we have already done for Marie Claire. We have extended the brand right from apparels to personal grooming to watches to all the other categories, and we have also extended them into a fashion salon actually. So this is where I had an eye that we can actually look forward to have a Carlton London salon also, which would really work and which would really do wonders. I believe it's one of the segments that we can actually explore into, apart from the general products and categories.
It is there for us also in the cards. The in terms of brand registration, brand presence is there in the saloon category also.
Yes,
Exactly.
this is
So coming,
grooming salon or a men grooming barber shop or a Carlton London structure than anything like that. But I would be more focused on first doing the categories that are no-brainer to me, like the category of men fashion, top class category. Obviously, kids is a huge category in terms of personal care and perfume. Between these three categories, I think should be the first focus, unless and until the opportunity is so compelling for doing salons and other things, and is a good operator, then I think one can really look at hybrid. Any last comments, Nakpal Saab, before we close the discussion? We already come down to our end of our show. So, any last comments you would like to have, and then I'll pass it on to Vatsal for his last comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Maria. Licensing and the brand extension are a path to growth. At the same time, as we discussed, one has to be very careful in the brand extension or the extension of business, expansion of business with a third party, where the alignment has to be compatible. It has to be a marriage. It has to be a long-term plan. It cannot be a short-term plan that, okay, you have a licensee for 3 years and then you salvage and look for the new one. Think of at least a 20 years or 25 years program. If you can find a partner, then only go for it. There's no hurry. The brand belongs to you. Nobody can take it away from you. It can be 6 months away or 6 years away. It still remains with you. Have patience, have the vision, have the complete message. The agreements have to be very, very watertight. Of course, Bradford has always been a great example of bringing out documents which are watertight. It does not allow the brand to sway away and start looking for another licensee or the licensee to simply sit on the brand and not to do anything in terms of go to market. The milestones have to be very well defined, and that is the what is all business about. That is what a professional organization is about. The milestone, the targets have to be very well defined. And now, with the experience of such a big natural disaster or a pandemic, uh, this has also started, now appearing in licensing agreement. You have to be considerate if the world is going through the pandemic or the market is going through the pandemic. You have to be sensitive to such situations, to be adjustable as per the market requirement, and not push your licensee against the wall and simply shout about the royalty or the payments. You rather have to motivate your licensee in these circumstances to stay along. It is a marriage. At the same time, it's a commercial marriage. So need to push each other for results. At the same time, remain aligned, hand in hand, for a success path. That is what is my final comments for this.
Very well said. Very well said. And I think this comes from your maturity and professional experience, which a lot of licensees lack sometimes. And I feel that it is good learning, and I think we have a great association for a very long period with the Carlton London, and we feel that going forward also we will more involved and go deeper into this relationship. So over to you, Vatsal, for your last comment, and thank you, more.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nagpal. I think I have many, questions to be asked, but keeping the time constraint, I really see that the way or the journey of Carlton London into licensing, the way it has actually explored the categories, the way it has managed these segments, the way it has evolved over a period of time. I think it's a very beautiful example for a couple of Indian brands which actually should come out with and get into licensing environment because they really have that unlocked potential with them. And and of course it's actually a very long term process, I would say, and we should actually consider this as a long term business scope or investment that we should look forward to. So I think that's really wonderful, Mr. Nathal, to have you today, and we would really look forward to have many amazing sessions and many more extensions also with Carlton London in the coming couple of months and years only. So that's amazing. I would really be thankful to you for joining us today, Mr. Nathal, over here. Uh,
Thank you very much, Mr. Nakpal. Thank you very much. And friends, if you have anything
Thank you, Mr. Maria.
you want to reach out to us for any kind of licensing inquiries, as I said, Bradford is the oldest licensing firm in India. and also one of the oldest in the world. We are over 30 years in operation in New York, London, and India. And if you are looking to acquire any potential licensee or you want to reach out to Carlton London, please reach out to Vatsal. And if you also have a brand which you want to license or you want to expand, then also you can do. Thank you very much for your time. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Let's remain in touch.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.